I think we are live now. So, welcome everyone to another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. Today we have Mark Collins as our guest, and as you read from the invitation, we will be talking about LinkedIn. I'm going to read a couple things about Mark, and then I'm probably going to ask him some questions about his bio. But he's been in the cannabis industry for a long time. Started in 2015, helping to build brands like Bloom Farms and Otto, raising capital for companies like MedMen, State House, Grupo Flor. And before cannabis, in the previous part of his career, worked at some of the largest companies you can think of. So Procter and Gamble, Kraft Foods, Warner, global marketing director for CNN. And you've been a CEO, CMO, CFO, and COO. Did I miss any C's there?
No, I think those are all the C's that there are.
That's a lot. Um, so thank you for joining us. I'm particularly excited about this. I do not consider myself a LinkedIn expert. I certainly use it a lot. It is the sort of my primary professional channel where I find people, when I meet someone, I immediately look them up, see if we have friends in common or acquaintances in common. And it's a good tool for me. But we've had a couple conversations. We met in person in Miami at
That's right.
Benzinga. That was a great conversation. And so wanted to get you on here both for my own personal benefit, but for everyone else as well.
That's great, Jake. Well, thank you. I've been a big fan of the media gel programmatic advertising and the importance it has to cannabis brands. So I'm really grateful to be given this platform to talk about LinkedIn. But I also don't consider myself that much of an expert. But what you had said in terms of your introduction to me reminded me of what I do. So at P&G, where I had the marketing training, if you like, they were all about the reach and frequency of messaging into a certain audience. So what I try to replicate, I know this sounds extraordinary, but on LinkedIn is kind of like programming a TV station. So you want to have educational content, but if you really want to reach an audience, you have to do it repetitively with different messages and different uh, types of media, like videos, articles, ebooks, and so on. And I think what LinkedIn offers us now as a cannabis industry is a safe community because LinkedIn are business very business focused. They're not like Instagram having issues with cannabis companies. They look at the cold hard legalities of cannabis and decide to permit cannabis conversations on LinkedIn. That's been incredibly useful for us as an industry to have a place to congregate and to discuss challenges. So the audience of LinkedIn should be considered to be a cannabis audience that could potentially give you business. So that's another way I look at it too, is that I still consider LinkedIn for business, while some people are using it more like Instagram.
Yeah, there is a little bit of seems like some people get a little confused about the audience and messaging that is best suited for LinkedIn versus personal things. But I do find overall it's largely very professional. Um, and I think I was actually surprised at how open LinkedIn was really from the beginning at allowing cannabis companies to use their platform as a medium to, for communication. When
Oh yeah, incredible. I think what it was, Jake, when I saw it happening when Microsoft took over LinkedIn they bought it from the founder, Reid Hoffman, and they simultaneously bought a platform called Jammer, which was positioned as a Facebook for business. So that was really smart because they have that Facebook interface of, comments and likes and all that. They had the IP from Jammer and then they applied it to LinkedIn. At that point, LinkedIn just took off. I think we're at more than a billion people are on LinkedIn right now. It's
Oh wow,
insane.
I did not know that stat. Okay, so um, there's a couple different places that we could start here. broad, like let's just talk about sort of the broad categories on LinkedIn. You have you have your own profile as an individual. You have your business page. You've got LinkedIn groups. When you are, and then just obviously the messaging, right? The frequency and type of posts that you're doing and engagement with people. If you had someone who is they're just starting on LinkedIn. They just decided they're getting their first LinkedIn profile. Um, what's the like the Fisher Price, like week one, where would you tell someone to spend their time in terms of getting established on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think it is, as you were just alluding to, Jake, it's really about the basics, getting the basics right. And so, I would say that elements like, um, starting from, if you imagine a LinkedIn profile, if you start from the top, you have, let me see if I could, I'm going to call up some notes here. Yeah. So what I was thinking is that you literally start at the top. So you look at your profile picture and headline.
Mhm.
Now, your headline it's very important to think about how people use LinkedIn when you're writing your LinkedIn. So that person who's never been on LinkedIn, this example that you've asked me to create, um, the first thing they should think about is what's the goal? What's the objective of LinkedIn? Well, the objective is to communicate what you do to other people so they know what you do for a living. And I know that sounds very basic, but people don't do that. And so in their titles, they put these very, meaningful and long titles like Vice President of Business Development or whatever, but that doesn't really communicate what they do. So I had that problem. I wanted to be known as because I was a CFO at Grupo Flor, I'm president at Highly Capitalized. I help people write their LinkedIn, all these things. I was trying to put it into one space. It just didn't work. So what I did was, instead of having my titles in, I simply put in my elevator pitch, which is I help companies to reach people at scale in the cannabis industry. And when I did that, I felt relieved because it's literally what I do. And although it doesn't sound very fancy, it's very helpful for people who come off what I do. And potentially it could get business too. But what's interesting though is that it really is superficial, this whole idea of LinkedIn. You really do need to have a nice photograph, and it can't be one with like 10 different filters on it. It has to be a looking photograph, like properly done. It makes such a difference to get a professional portrait done. It's a good investment. It's a couple $100. It will make a huge difference. And then, working down from the profile, I would say to that person who's never been on LinkedIn is to, keep it simple. There's the about section is important too, because people look at social media, they're doing something called social proofing. So social proofing is when before they buy a service or buy a product, they check it out 360 degrees on social media. They look at what the social media presence of it is, they look at what people say about that company, and they look at many different elements. And then at that point, then they make the decision to buy. So it's very important then to have, your in your about section, what are the benefits you give to your clients and what are the benefit what you offer people in more detail. So again, you've captured them with the headline graph that, is your best foot forward. And then in the about section, you indicate, your credentials essentially. And that helps reassure people that they're dealing with someone who's credible and who's done similar projects to the one they're planning to engage you with, or become a partner of yours, or work on a license together or whatever. So I'd say that again, consistently, your skill set and your experience, even though you might want to put in things that are cool, don't just put in things that are absolutely relevant to getting the job done. Those degrees or certificates you have that have helped you to, demonstrate that you have the technical skills to do what you do. So again, you're just going through the LinkedIn profile now, making sure that you've got your recommendations and engagements, recommendations and endorsements. It's quite easy to send out a message saying, hey, could you please endorse me? Again, that's how people buy products or services, they're social proofing you. So they want to see what people write about you. So if you invite people to endorse you, you're helping to guide the viewer in the right direction. And so that's what I'd say about the profile. But I'll pause there for a moment, Jake, because I
Yeah.
think what the next part is sort of activating the profile, and how do you do that?
Yeah, well, that tracks with what we do, right? When we work, we do marketing for brands, retailers, et cetera. And, when we see, we'll run campaigns for two brands that are fundamentally the same. And we'll see very different performance metrics for them. And it comes down to, in this case, the post-click experience, which is the landing page. Where have you taken the person? Social proofing is something we talk to brands a lot about. How do you put all the information on a landing page that says that this is a trustworthy person? And there's kind of a checkbox, like you were saying, good imagery, reviews, some
Yeah,
sort of social proofing, like as seen on here,
endorsement.
some sort of indicator that brand is a real brand, has been around for a while, and um, is reputable, right? So it's a very similar concept. So if you think about your LinkedIn profile basically as your professional landing page, the same way you would think about a product that you're trying to sell, that resonates quite a bit with me.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think when it comes to off LinkedIn, I mean, I see that you're very consistent on and off social media as a agency, and I think that's critical because back to social proofing, it's not only on LinkedIn they're checking you out, they're checking you out on Instagram, they're checking you out in the marketing materials, on the website, in the newsletters. So it's important to have that consistent message. So I think that's so assuming now that in your example, to take your example, that the person has a nice professional page, I think you could even Google LinkedIn profile photos and you'll see a selection of images that you could just grab. People like images of cities, for example. They seem to be very inspiring, or of nature.
I mean, like the
Again,
background, the header
the
image.
background, yeah, the header picture. It's actually, the brighter the picture, the more memorable you will become. So obviously, if you're working in the cannabis industry, the temptation is to put a photo behind your profile or in your header of a cannabis plant, but try to avoid cliche, I'd say, and try to do something that's more unique. Maybe a artistic view of a cannabis plant, something different. Anyway, so yeah, so maybe Jake, should we talk about activating the profile now?
Let's talk about activating the profile.
So yeah, so well, I think this is really critical because a lot of people who have asked me that my opinion about LinkedIn, they struggle with the getting started, right? And they're like, well, I'm worried about, if I post, no one will like it. Well, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to really understand your purpose on LinkedIn. What are you trying to accomplish? And for example, if you're trying to sell something or if you're trying to build awareness of something, or if you're trying to reach a certain group of people, each of those have its own objectives and characteristics. But ultimately, what you're doing on LinkedIn, whether you like it or not, is you're building awareness of yourself through posts, and you're giving yourself like a little mini TV station that people could watch.
Mhm.
So if you think about it like that you have a little TV station on LinkedIn, well, what do you want people to watch on your TV station on LinkedIn? Well, you want them to watch, um, you want them to buy your products probably, but it never works if you're just trying to hard sell someone from one end of the day to the other. No one, it'll just turn people off. So the technique in social media, of course, is to use education or informational content in order to lure people in to your TV station on LinkedIn, if I could call it like that.
Mhm.
And then adding a lot of value as much as possible is what you do next. So how do you make your post stand out? Well, I think the first thing is you need to keep it simple, right? So there's 4 steps that I'd say to writing a post. The first step is the hook. Again, what are you there for? Well, you want to sell something. Well, maybe give some education first.
Mhm.
So you have a hook, which is a different take on a news topic. So, for example, there were recently in the news, Germany legalized cannabis for adults, but they only focused on social cannabis social clubs and home grow. And so the hot take on that was what they didn't have. So what I looked at it was I simply looked at that particular news story and I said to myself, oh, that's interesting. They don't have brands in retail in Germany like we do over here. And so that was my hot take on the German news. So while everybody else was saying, woohoo, Germany, launched adult use, I tried to do a so-called hot take by saying, okay, what do I have to say that's different about this news story? And I just looked at I just compared and contrast with the United States licensing model, and it looked like the Germans said, to heck with brands and retail, we're not going to go the way of the Americans. And so that itself, with that different take on a news story, that had something like 30,000 views compared to an average post where you didn't have a hot take. So the thing about writing the post is that you have that hot take, but then you also have to reinforce what the benefits are, what this means. So you have a hot take that something's different in Germany. Then you say what this means to the industry from your perspective. And then finally, you have an opportunity once you've introduced that information to say, a call to action like, hey, follow me here to follow this story. I'm going to be following it on in the next few weeks. So follow me here. So whatever your call to action is, follow me here, buy my product. That should be the end of the post. So again, the hook or the headline should be something like a hot take or something different. The next sentence or paragraph explains why you think it's a hot take. The third paragraph or the third sentence, if you like, of the post could be something around what are the implications, and then finally what you want the viewer to do next, which is to keep following you or follow the story or whatever. So that is basically the construct of a good post on LinkedIn. Now, the challenge is you have to do that repeatedly initially. And again, we're using this example of somebody who's just come onto LinkedIn for the first time. You have to have the patience with yourself to just do that over and over again and not worry about people liking it, because they won't like it initially. You'll just have posts that'll just be bereft of any likes, and you might think, gosh, it's not working. But again, you just have to keep posting every day. So some days I don't post. Some days I post 3 or 4 times. I don't have any rhythm or method of posting. I try to look at in the morning, look at the news on highlycapitalized.com. We have a team of people who are constantly posting stories. So I go on to LinkedIn, highlycapitalized.com, and I check the stories. And if there's any story that appeals to me, or if I can think of something interesting to say about it, a hook, something that's different to everybody else saying the same thing, then I would take that story, repost it onto my own feed, and then give my take on that story. And again, I think that's how the LinkedIn algorithm works. It wants repetition. It wants a lot of content, and it wants different takes on existing content. It wants original ideas, essentially. So if you could think original ideas, it's not, sometimes to do that, I need to take myself out for a long walk or something, or, if you go to the gym. But if you just book some time with yourself to think about things, you may not have the solutions right away, but, your mind works to try to solve problems. And, you say, what is the most compelling post I could make about what I do? And if you just think about that, if you, as an objective, your mind will come up with something. And again, it's practice, practice, practice. You have to just keep at it, keep repeating, keep posting every day, and not give a damn about what other people think of you. Really don't care less. Don't care at all about what people think of you. Just know that you're putting together, solid content that's useful to somebody, and eventually people will start responding to it, and it'll be amazing. And before you know it, within a few months, if you post every day with this simple 4-part post that I just described, I'm sure you'll you'll start to see great activity around your LinkedIn profile.
Okay. I have several questions based on what you said. Let's start with hot takes. Okay. Hot takes get attention. Now, when this is something that you help coach people kind of like one-on-one. That's one of the
Yeah.
things that you do and help people with like LinkedIn strategy. So
Yeah.
when you are talking about how do you give people a framework of how to get attention, maybe say something mildly controversial, but not actually get themselves like in a lot of trouble? Or is any PR good PR? I have one more. I have an anecdote here. So we had one of our staff members, this was a couple of years ago, posted some pretty inflammatory content, really just about other marketing platforms that existed. It wasn't anything like socially unacceptable, but it was a pretty big dig. Um, and I was surprised at how fast LinkedIn responds because my phone started ringing like at 6 a.m., right? Because it turns out that our investors or their investors, and there's this, there's you probably see this all the time. Sometimes you think you just put something on LinkedIn and like, there it is, it's out there. It turns out people are reading it, and it does have impact. So how do you give people a framework of how to push the envelope a little bit, but not get themselves in too much trouble?
Yeah, I think there's two things I'd say there. The first is to be honest. Okay. Once you're honest, even if you're attacking your opponent, as long as you're honest about it, you're not you're protected, as it were. No one could touch you. They can't say that you're lying. They can't say that you're um uh you know doing something wrong if you're telling the truth. However, there is, if you are attacking someone, it isn't perceived to be cool on LinkedIn, because it's easier to you know talk shit about someone than it is to talk shit about them in an effective way, right? So if you really want to ruin your competition, you should just have a better service than they do and win all their clients. So there's no point, I think, in getting into fights on LinkedIn. It's literally pointless. And I also think, and this is my own opinion, but a lot of people do not share it. I think politics has no place on LinkedIn whatsoever. It's so divisive at the moment now. It's better to try to avoid it. So back to your question, Jake, I think that the first thing I would say is you have to be honest, because the candor is where the rubber meets the road. Because if you're not being honest, if you're not trying to push the needle a bit, and you're not trying to challenge the existing dogmas or challenge the status quo, you're just going to be, wallpaper. No one is going to read you. You're just going to be same, same, same. And a lot of
Yeah.
companies want to be same, same, same. They don't want to stand out. They want to have business from every direction possible. But in the effort to appeal to be all things to all people, they're they're just wallpaper. They don't have an opinion. They're just like whatever they are. But people like to work with people who are likable. They like the whole likability. And if you look at some of the influencers on LinkedIn, who are likable, they're they have a lot of candor. They're being very honest about their lives and honest about their work and honest, but they're doing it in a way that's professional, and that's not aggressive.
Great. So you mentioned just now that you had a post one about the German, we'll call it partial legalization,
Yes.
and that got 30,000 views, right?
Yeah, and
If you
300
could give,
likes.
was that
And about 300 likes, which
300 likes?
is unusual.
So maybe you could give me some examples of some of your kind of favorite posts that you've put out, like your sort of Hall of Fame in terms of what kind of engagement have you seen when you really hit the mark with a post on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you had mentioned, or one of your colleagues had mentioned that before, and I used a post that is very close to my heart. I really don't like this distinction between indica and sativa. So I think it's just for lazy marketing people, right? Because indica and sativa are the names of the shape of the fronds of the plant, of the cannabis plant. they have nothing to do with the benefits of, the cultivars and terpenes that give you the
Mhm.
highs so I just don't think it's smart to use those terms. Anyway, so I put that out in a post, and I've actually reposted it on my feed last night, so you could see it if you scroll through my feed. But it basically got a 250,000 views and 790 likes.
Did it get any? Do they have thumbs down? I guess they don't have thumbs down on LinkedIn, do
They
they?
don't. No, but there was huge debates and discussions about it, and it revealed that we're, as an industry, we're not happy with this clumsy indica sativa explanation of, sativa for creativity and
Right.
indica for sleep or relaxation, or and then hybrid. It's just so clumsy. That's not at all how the cannabis plant works. It's like a it's so fake. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, that resonated, and other things resonate that are kind of the what you may think is obvious is always worth sharing, because that's what is probably the most broadly held view. So, for example, there was a conversation about um, some of the names that we have in the industry, like that could be quite provocative. Why do we have the name marijuana? It was cooked up by Harry Anslinger in the 1920s to vilify the Mexican immigrants coming to the United States because of the Civil War. There was a civil war in Mexico in the 20s, so we had a huge influx of Mexican people, all good people. Maybe one or two of them out of hundreds of thousands smoked weed, but that was used as a stick to beat them with the marijuana. They were calling it cannabis, but it didn't sound very uh, evil and sinister, so they called it marijuana, which is a made
Okay.
up name, doesn't even exist. Anyway, so doing a hot take on, we should just ban the word marijuana will create uh, controversy. I actually put a post on that a few years ago, and I was attacked by people who wanted to continue to use the word marijuana.
Yeah, I've been in many conversations about what the right word is to use, whether or not people should use the weed anymore or can anyway. So yeah, those type of things. It sounds like does it work well when you can position a statement out there in this case where you are going to get two sides of an opinion and people that are feel strongly enough to weigh in and add comments?
Yeah, I think I don't. I think you can only have one opinion at a time, and then you
Well, you
have.
can have one opinion at a time, but I'm saying like putting an opinion out there that is going to instigate other people to want to either agree with you or disagree with you. Because
Yeah,
it
no,
takes
that's
time
true.
to comment on something, right? You're getting like, if something's boring and uninteresting, people aren't going to comment on it, right?
Yeah,
Unless
so
I got a new job and then everyone has to say congratulations.
yeah. By the way, that's a quick way of getting a lot of likes, is to just to put in a little post about celebration. People always tend to like celebratory posts because they're harmless. They don't. Yeah, that's the thing. People are careful about liking stuff because everybody could see what other people could like. So one has to be really deliberate on what you like, because it'll be amplified across your whole platform. But yeah, I think, I always I'm always prepared to defend my posting. So I'm always prepared to, if I post something, I have to defend it. So, one has to think through what you're about to post and think about how you would reply to any negative or positive comments. So, but without trying to push the needle, again, you'll just be all things to all people and nothing to no one. So you're diluting your message if you're not putting out your opinion. Your opinion is what is driving your engagement. So the clearer your opinion and the more distinct and unusual and different your opinion is, your hot take, the more successful your post will be.
Okay. Let's jump into same topic, but slightly different angle. Posts for you as an individual versus posts from your company. If you happen to be like an owner or executive or the marketing manager for a company and you have admin control of the LinkedIn page for your business, how do you guide people in that angle?
Yeah, I would tend to again, my strategy is not about quality, it's about quantity of posts, right? So when I would, if I'm writing a post for myself, I will then rewrite it or shrink it down, pressy it to appear on the company page as well.
Did you say pressy it?
Pressy, yeah. So the art of pressy is really important. I was going to come on to talk about that. Pressy means, it was something I was taught in P&G, and it means to make more precise
Oh, okay.
without losing the meaning. So how do you do that? Well, at P&G, they said, take out the words the, that, but, it, and your sentences will run very quickly. So that's how you pressy something. You make it streamlined and quick to read by removing all those, bridging words like but, the, that. It's amazing when if you look at a sentence and you take out all the that's, the these, and the it's, the sentence is easier to read. So yeah, so that's something about the art of pressy. But when you what I'm trying to say is that when you're writing something on LinkedIn, it's very easy then just to transfer it to your company page, whatever you've written. And it should become a habit for you to do so because your company page is incredibly important part of this social proofing paradigm where people are checking you out 360. And Media Gel's page is absolutely on par, right? It's a good example. Your page, you have webinars with all the different topics that reflect your skill set and expertise and your services to clients. They're all laid out there. So people are thinking, oh, they do programmatic advertising. Oh, I see they did a webinar about that. Oh, they're talking about it here. They're talking about it there. So they must be experts at programmatic advertising. So it's just how people behave. So absolutely, Jake, you must take whatever you're doing with your heart and soul on your own feed and apply it to your company feed. I'd even go a step further, and I sometimes write a post for my team so they could echo some of
Okay.
the activity we're doing. So
And,
maybe write one post and write it as if it could be used for 10 different media.
and is that, let's say, I put out a post under my name, does the company page repost that, or do I make a new post from the company, or the other way around, or?
New posts have the LinkedIn algorithm likes newness. They like originality. So if you're just reposting, it won't have as much of an impact as you take a post. Again, say you're taking the time to write a post for your own feed. Just edit it in a way that you could use it for your company page with
Mhm.
some modification, your Instagram page with some modification. Give it to your colleagues so that they could post it because they're probably all busy as heck. So they could always benefit from a post somebody else wrote and they'll modify it for themselves. So, at CNN, one journalist would write a story for three different media. So say a journalist would write a story about a news event in, I don't know, New York, the mayor got elected or whatever. So the headline would be mayor gets elected in New York. That would be sent out in a text message as a breaking news alert. Then the opening paragraph would be read by a newscaster on the news prompter on the scrolling text that the newsreaders read.
Mhm.
Then the headline, the body copy, and the main copy would be put onto the internet. So you'd have those three parts: headline, the opening paragraph explaining everything, and then the detail in the body copy. Those three elements be written by one journalist, but as I said, they're used by the text, people to send out text to on cellular. Then they are used on the news by the newsreaders, and then they're used on the internet. So I'm trying to encourage you to think about how to reuse content because sometimes you have a great post, you should reuse it.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's talk about the content of the post, right? So that it's most basic, you can just write a sentence, go, right?
Yep.
Then you have the option to add media. Are you linking to an article? Are you posting an image? Are you including a video? Is it a video that you uploaded? Is it like an embedded YouTube video? What kind of engagement metrics do you see or recommend for people when they put a post? And then you can, well, get hashtags and emojis and all that. What are your thoughts on if you're gonna buy someone to post every day, right? Does every day need to be well, I'll call like a high production value post with media and hashtags and thoughts? Do you need to do that once a week? Do you never do it? What are your thoughts
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, that's interesting. So for our clients, what we do is we have two videos. So we do 30 days of content for our clients. And I don't mean to sell HCN, but I'm trying to answer your question. But basically, those two, so one week we record a video, prepare it. Next week we edit it and publish it. And then so we have a constant stream of video content. The next layer of content is an article. So we drop an article a week uh, on Highly Capitalized, which is reposted to our client's feed. So that is the sort of thought, we call that a thought leadership article.
Mhm.
But we also do regular posts, just sort of updates and other information. But we put all our horses around the videos, and we uh, put all our horses behind the articles, because those are the horses that pull the leads into the clients. So what's critical is that when you're thinking about so to answer your question, Jake, I would say that every week they should the to really succeed on LinkedIn, to put together something very thoughtful and really, spend a bit of time on it, spend maybe a couple of hours writing it, thinking about it, and then intersperse that with just regular updates or posts or, hot takes, whatever. But it is critical because over time, the cumulative effort of people expecting this deep thought leadership is what will be happening. People will be expecting you to come out with something that's very deep. So that example that I did of indica versus sativa being a bad terminology in the industry, that was I had written an article about it too. So I did spend a few hours on it, but I spent no time on the post. But I attached the article to what I had written. You could do that on LinkedIn. You could write an article for yourself on LinkedIn, a LinkedIn article, and then you could repost that LinkedIn article about whatever your feelings are. And again, I think that one will succeed if one has a different take on everybody else. So yeah, it is very important once a week to do that big thought leadership piece, and then
Okay,
sprinkle in, personal stuff in between.
great. And then in a weird web of irony here, we're streaming this. Just I know we've got a bunch of people here that are live. There is a Q&A section, so if you want to ask questions. However, if you're watching it live on LinkedIn, I can't see those questions. If you're in the Zoom section, I can see those questions, and we're happy to answer those. Also, I think it's on YouTube, but again, only the people that are on Zoom are able to ask questions. But if you want to
I,
type those in, well, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to mention there's a style and technique of writing. I have some more thoughts on your last question,
Sure.
and the media. So there's a gentleman named Seth Yakatan who's a friend of mine. He's using a lot of graphics. So he would go on to Canva or some other graphics, or maybe it's not him, maybe it's one of his team, but he always has the idea that he wants to impart on on a graphic from Canva. So he uses it, and it's branded Seth Yatakan. So
Mhm.
it's a good combination between his thought leadership ideas and this graphic. Now, the other thing that he would do, and a lot of people are doing it nowadays, is they have these, another friend of mine, Stephen George, who is a LinkedIn expert. They have this style and methodology where they have spacing between the sentences that they have.
Okay.
Some of them are, you know, uh, the sentences even have a shape that sometimes, shapes the entire post. And then they use things like arrows and emojis. Those are very effective because they take up a lot of space on your phone. So when you're scrolling through something, and if you see double spaces, A, it's easier to read, and B, you're seeing it more than a shorter post. So I just thought that was an interesting add-on to answer your question, what graphics? You could literally go onto Canva, create a little brand for yourself and put a sentence on it. Use that as the I call it the echo to the post. So you have a post and you have an article or video, something that echoes your sentiments that are in the post. And that's when, if you have a good graphic with a good post, you should have good engagement.
Yeah, and with generative AI tools now, it's if you want to just type in, I need a image that reflects this basic concept. That's a nice thing that could, I mean, you don't never know what you're going to get. It might take you a little while to get what you want, but
Sure.
it does take a otherwise a post that might be seem more static and just text. You throw an image on there and it will get more attention.
Yeah, I think the principle is what image can get you the most attention, and you need to take a step back and think about that. You can't.
What appropriate image can get
Yes,
you
exactly. Yeah,
attention?
yeah.
Because yeah, put some guardrails on that. Um, we actually have we've got a question here from Jimmy, which is very pertinent to this. Question is, what is the value of live on LinkedIn versus posting regularly? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that people don't use social media as a destination. They don't like say, "Oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to check out LinkedIn," or "It's 3 o'clock." They just see what's on their phone whenever they want to see what's on their phone. So LinkedIn Live, I think, is not as effective as just the frequency of most posts. I don't do. I can do LinkedIn Live. I think we're doing it right now, but
Yeah.
it's just in my experience, the engagement I've gotten is very limited. Whereas over a week, if I post 5 videos, 5 articles, and write 5 hot takes, I'll get, hundreds of thousands of impressions.
Now, when you've done that before, because I'm reasonably confident we're running this live right now, but it's going to end in 15 minutes or whatever. It's still going to show up in people's feed as, Jake and Mark were live, and then
Yeah.
it's a replay. It's not like it's ephemeral, right? It still
Yeah.
exists. But have you noticed when you've done it, it doesn't seem to like LinkedIn doesn't push it back into people's feed as much as you would like?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I was surprised they didn't because it's good content. And if someone's going to do something live, it does suggest that, it could be, um, it's evergreen, it could be used for a week afterwards. I don't know why they don't do it. I think they're just trying to encourage more people to do more content more often.
Yeah.
But again, if you look at what I've done in with and what I'll do with this one too is I'll repost it myself a couple of times because that's the only way it'll get any traction. But again, back to the uh, quality, sorry, quantity over quality. I'd love to do that thought leadership article that we were just discussing a few minutes ago every day of the week. I can't. So I do quantity. So I pick articles, I give them my hot take. And then so it's just the bombardment I do because I believe that uh, quantity has its own quality, right? Just the simple volume of output I have is what's got me to 32,600 followers. It's not from, LinkedIn Live. It's not from the occasional post. It's from an absolute bombardment every week of at least 15 posts.
Well, hopefully you get at least one more follower out of today. We'll see. We'll count the numbers later. We have a question from Maureen, which is, do you think longer posts on LinkedIn get read versus quick content that is the norm on other platforms?
It's a good question. It depends what the topic is, I feel. Again, back to this new style of writing where people have these long posts with spaces in between, and then their points are made by like 3 little arrows. Those have their own, again, for 2 reasons. They're easier to read and they take up a lot of space on your phone screen, so you notice them. And if they're easy to read, you probably just scan through them. So it's effective. However, if you do that too much, people get bored with it. And if the topics you're choosing are boring, well, then it's not going to work. But if it's a hot take, like for example, a list of all the wrong names, back to just an example, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like there's so many names in the cannabis industry that are probably redundant, like indica, sativa, marijuana, and so on, that you could have a long post about all the names that you would like to change. And that's
Mhm.
quite provocative because some people don't want to change the names. And so you could get a lot of engagement through that kind of a post. However, I have had posts where it's just like two sentences, one sentence. I remember there was one post which just had I said I would like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs, and it was an article about how a local community had decided to fully legalize all drugs in
Yeah,
Massachusetts somewhere. Anyway, that little humorous line that got way more engagement than one of my most detailed, complicated, thought through research posts. So
nice.
humor is what breaks through everything, by the way. Humor is incredibly powerful. But, if you're working in the cannabis industry right now, you probably have a lack of a sense of humor or a sense
It
of
is
humor
real tough.
failure because it's very
Yeah,
tough at the moment.
yeah. There's yeah, it's tough. We'll leave it at that. That's its own conversation. We have Kim has a question here, which is there SEO value in posting on LinkedIn organically? I'm not actually sure what you mean by organically. In terms of SEO value, I guess is the maybe the question is, does this happen? Can I go on Google and search war on drugs and somehow your LinkedIn post shows up as something I can go to?
I
I don't.
haven't, yeah, I haven't seen that. I do. It's an interesting question. All right. So I think that when I think about what is an organic post, it's a post that um, is unique to that platform. Um, what I would say is that the more uniqueness that you could have in what you're saying, the better. So that would require you to look across the conversation or scroll through your entire feed and see what people are talking about on a certain topic.
Yeah.
So the topic, say, rescheduling versus descheduling. So I came out very strongly against descheduling entirely because I think that cannabis is less dangerous than aspirin, which is widely available. So why is cannabis not totally descheduled? Anyway, that provoked a lot of people, like retailers are saying, well, that's terrible. There's a lot of children who could access it. Anyway, it was a good debate, but that is an organic debate, I would say, and it was a debate that just came from a provocative comment.
Okay, I think Kim had a follow-up. I think what they're saying is organic is not promoted or paid. I think maybe the question is obviously LinkedIn makes money from advertising, right? So do you see both things take money of some form because it takes time to do things, right? So let's say you're going to build a thought leadership article, you're going to produce a video, you're going to post it on LinkedIn, that has some amount of time value to it. Doing that versus let's say you've whatever you're trying to accomplish to get people to come to your site and learn about you. If you were just to spend, let's just a thought experiment here, take an equivalent amount of dollars and actually buy a paid campaign on LinkedIn and to push to people that you want to send the message to. I think the question is how do you
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Now I understand the question a bit better. Thank you. So, organic versus I'm sorry, I would call organic earned media. And so sorry, forgive me. I've been living over in Europe for a minute long time, so I have the different
it's
vocabulary.
it's still earned media. I know what you mean.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so earned media versus paid media. Well, if you believe in the concept of social proofing on how people are buying services, um, they won't like a paid ad because it looks like you have to try too hard. In other words, you're either accepted by the cannabis industry and community as
Mhm.
a supplier, service provider, or a participant in the industry, or you're sending us like advertising messages saying, "Hey, buy our stuff." It doesn't work. I think people uh, because we're such a highly networked industry, organic or earned media is much, much more effective. I'd say as much as 5 times more effective. Now, I wouldn't rule out advertising on LinkedIn. It's always a good complement to do some paid advertising, particularly if you don't have a large reach. So if you need the reach and you've only got a few hundred followers, then you'll have to do paid advertising. But try to do paid advertising that at least looks organic.
Okay. There's a couple more topics I want to try to sneak in here before the top of the hour. One is LinkedIn groups. There's lots of them. Um, what is your opinion on LinkedIn groups? How should you use them or not use them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a member of so many groups, but I don't really use them. There's a lot of talk about, all sorts of different other platforms that are like LinkedIn, and there's platforms, yeah, and within LinkedIn there's groups. The main platform is just LinkedIn. It's not LinkedIn groups. It's not off LinkedIn. It's just your feed and your company feed on LinkedIn. That's where it's all happening. Of course, having a group is useful if you have a specific purpose in mind. For example, the group of people who are assembling to discuss a certain topic, or to, go to a certain event, or to, uh, have a subject matter expertise. But most of the groups in cannabis now, I think, are dormant. That, at least that I'm aware of. There are a few good networking groups that are not kind of on LinkedIn, but they're just general networking groups, and they're all over the country. And I think what you'll find is that it's groups like the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. They'll have a lot of insight into, the groups that you should be part of. So um, yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a really clear cut opinion, but
Yeah, well, I think the
I
answer
don't
is
use groups. It's just I
not.
use yeah, I try to keep it simple. Just use the company feed and the my own feed.
All right, so now I have well, tangent here. Many people or many business cards are less popular, right? You go to events, fewer people have business cards. Some people have QR codes, go to a profile. I usually just find someone I say, oh, I'll just look you up on LinkedIn and then add you. But it's sort of actually me getting personal free coaching from you. But I do that and I do a request and, okay, now we're connected. But then frequently I forget who that was that I talked to, and then I've got lots of people in my contact list. If I want to go back and figure out who the people were that I recently connected with, like say last week, or when I was, in Miami, maybe I met 10 people, but finding them again if you don't remember their name. Do you have a best practice for how you handle that, or you send someone a message, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I use the CC card scanner. I find that's pretty useful in terms of being efficient with business cards. So
I'm saying no business card. There's no business card involved in this
yeah,
situation.
no, sorry, I should say an electronic business card, right?
Okay.
So, so you could both, you could scan someone's badge, or you could scan their card, or you could scan their QR code. All of that is in the card reader that I use. So, what I'm able to do then is that converts the information into a CSV file, which I upload onto my newsletter, and I upload into my own contacts. So I think that, technology is my answer to that. But ultimately, I'm also trying to just be where everybody else is. So if someone has a QR code they want me to use, I'll use it. If someone wants me to use a new app that helps them, I'll use that. I don't care. I need to collect the information. At events, I'm really happy if I could add like 5 investors to my newsletter. That's a successful event for me.
Okay.
So I'm not really looking for contacts at scale. I'm just looking for those key people that will help my clients who are raising capital.
Great. Um, Probably the last question I'll ask you, since we have a lot of time here. LinkedIn analytics. There's analytics. Everything should have analytics. How do you use LinkedIn analytics, and how would you recommend people look at the data that LinkedIn makes available to you?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that the company sizes and locations have always been consistent in cannabis. So cannabis capital cities are San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Miami, San Diego, um, maybe a few other cities in between. But
Or you're going to offend someone for legal
yeah,
reasons,
I
so
know.
that's just going to
Sorry,
happen. Yeah.
but ultimately, the I I don't think we have strong enough statistics and data measurement for such a relatively small industry. There's only like 250,000 people active in cannabis, working in cannabis. And then, the it's pretty obvious they come from the big cities. That's where the money is, that's where the population centers are. But ultimately, I don't really spend much time on that. My key metrics are how many people, how many impressions and views, and ultimately how many likes. And really, that's the only way to influence the algorithm. There is no other, in other words, if you knew that people were coming in from New York, you could put some more content about New York maybe. But if that's not your jam, you just have to accept that people will be coming from wherever to follow you and to look at your content. So I know that's not a great answer, but I simply don't use the statistics that are provided. And maybe I should be using them, but I haven't been doing so today.
Well, what about just the breakdown between views and likes and comments as those three sort of statistical
Yeah.
categories? How do you see those interplay and which ones are, more meaningful to you?
Yeah, I think the more meaningful ones to me are the reposts, to be honest, which is a category,
Oh,
a fourth category, which is it shows that you're actually resonating with someone emotionally because they've taken the action of doing a repost. That means that they share that same opinion and they feel that you've communicated it well. And so that to me is a great thing if I get a repost. The likes are very fickle. Sometimes I do a post that gets no likes, sometimes it gets a few, sometimes it's only my team that are liking the posts. But I don't really care about that. I can't care about that because I'd be mortified. There's some posts that haven't got no likes at all. And I have 32,600 followers, and some posts have no likes. I'm so embarrassed. But I can't
yeah.
let embarrassment get in my way. I just soldier on. Again, I believe if one thing I could share is that, quantity has its own quality. So just get out there and post a lot. Oh, by the way, somebody asked me about tags. I tend to tag a lot. Basically, if you search for top trending hashtags on LinkedIn, you'll get a list of them. And so what I do is I refer to that from time to time so that I make sure that I tag, like the word management is currently the highest trending term being searched for on LinkedIn, hashtag management. So I try to drop that into the post as well. But yeah, aside from that, don't have much statistical data-driven decision making on my posting.
Great. Well, no, it's good. That was actually a good little tidbit here at the very end for everyone that sticks around to the final minutes.
Yeah,
Um, well, thank you so much for your time, Mark.
DJ.
If you could spend just a couple more minutes explaining what highly capitalized is, what it is you do for people and companies, and how people can find you. I already know the answer is going to be LinkedIn, but I have to ask the question anyway.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me advertise our little business. So, Highly Capitalized is a financial and business media platform. We strive to have very honest news, and we always have done. Our news looks very different from other people because we don't take on, contracts to promote companies. We do have sponsored content, which is where we make our money. And what we offer people is 30 pieces of content each month, two videos, their own video podcast. I'm trying to sell a show now called Battle of the Brands. I think it would be great for a company, and then a company in marketing or branding or selling packaging, and then those two videos every month will be accompanied by 4 articles talking about branding and marketing, and then we'll also write 15 posts about that show, and that will be sent out to 70,000 people every week on a newsletter. So this is getting great results because what we do is we tag all the content. So if someone downloads the article or downloads the deck or downloads anything, we capture their email address. So I'm able to go back to my clients with like hundreds of emails and say, hey, look, here's all your prospects, here's some leads. So it's a great lead gen platform. And for companies, like we had an accounting client, they 10x their book of business. We had another client who also said they had incredible results. We have a client currently getting 2 to 3 new leads per day. And yeah, we're very fortunate that we've doubled down and tripled down on LinkedIn because everything we do is designed to generate leads from LinkedIn and from our newsletter and just help companies to reach the right people.
Great. Well, thanks for all of that. I appreciate all of the free advice that I've gotten. I definitely I need to do some things to my LinkedIn profile, I think.
Okay.
I know that our company page is good because we have a marketing team that manages that,
Yeah,
but I
that's
think I have
good.
some homework for myself to do. So thanks for all the tips. This has been another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live with Mark Collins of Highly Capitalized.
Thank you, Jake.
Everyone, have a great day.
Take care. Bye bye.